As you know, my name is Abdulaziz Sharopovni, and I actually teach SAT at my own center. My own SAT score is 1490, which is actually part of top 1% globally, which is a very big number. Top 1% of anything means the best. Think about how many people take SAT around the world, from Russia, UK, USA, Japan, Korea. Among everybody who took the SAT along with me, I was part of the top 1% with my score. But apart from that, a lot of people like to ask me, Mr. Abdulaziz, have you ever taken IELTS? I never took IELTS myself, but I did take TOEFL. And my TOEFL score is 114, which is actually the same thing as IELTS 8.5. As you can see, my sub scores were literally 9, 9, 8.5, 7.5. And so from that academic standpoint, I've done quite well. Apart from that, currently I'm a student of Northwestern University in Qatar, and there I've won a $260,000 scholarship. Before Northwestern, I was actually studying at Tashkent International School. It is a school here in Tashkent, and it's a very expensive school. It costs about $30,000 per year to study there. Now you might be thinking, in Uzbekistan, $30,000? Yes, because TIS is literally the most prestigious school here. Because I was studying there for 3 years with a scholarship, my evaluation was 90,000. But I want to talk about Northwestern for a moment, because nowadays a lot of people like to ask me about this question. What is Northwestern? What kind of university? Well, Northwestern is a highly ranked university. It's ranked 29 globally in 2021, which once again is a very big number. Think about how many universities there are around the world. Tens of thousands in every country. Russia, UK, USA, China, Korea, Singapore, India. Think about all of those universities. For Northwestern to be ranked 29th place, that means it's one of the best. And apart from that, I will be studying media communications as my major. And my major, Northwestern, is ranked 15th globally. So even better. And obviously, because it's so prestigious, it costs a lot of money. The tuition at Northwestern University in Qatar is $60,000 per year. Think about it, that's the price of 2 Malibus every single year. Insane. And apart from that, living in Qatar is also not so cheap. It costs $5,000 per year just for my dormitory. Now, luckily for me, I won't be paying this price. As I've mentioned, I've won a $65,000 per year grant to study there. And because I'm studying for 4 years, that's a total of $260,000. At this point, you might be wondering, Mr. Abdulaziz, you've only won a $260,000 scholarship. Why are you here talking to us about $300,000? Well, that's because, as I've mentioned, I teach SAT, and along with that, I've helped a lot of students with their university applications. And so I want to take a moment to talk about our own student results. First up, we have Sevinch Rahmanzada. Recently, she took the SAT and got 1,510, perfect math score. However, even better than that, she was accepted to Northwestern University, New York University in Abu Dhabi. And her university is ranked 40th place globally, and her scholarship is $320,000. We also have Azamat, who got the exact same statistics. Hi, Yakhon. Nice to see you. Azamat, who got accepted to the same university with the same scholarship. Even better than that, we also have Firdaus Yakubov. He got accepted to Cornell University. For those of you who don't know, Cornell is part of the Ivy League, the same group of universities as Harvard, Columbia, Princeton, not Stanford. Stanford is not in the Ivy League. But yeah, his university is ranked 17th globally, even better than my university, and he got $316,000 in total. We also have Rustam. Rustam got accepted to Yale University this year, and this university is absolutely crazy. It's literally the same rank as Harvard, most people would say. Among 50,000 applicants, only 2,000 people were accepted. Among 50,000 people, they decided to take Rustam. And on top of that, they gave him $90,000 per year, the price of 3 Malibus. And his total evaluation is 360,000, which honestly, I've been in this sphere for about 4 to 5 years. This is the biggest scholarship I've ever seen in Uzbekistan. Cool. Both of them, $240,000 each. We also have Abdul, who got accepted to Northwestern, my university, but also he got accepted to New York University in Shanghai. Both of these scholarships together is $475,000. Here we have Ahmadullah, who also got accepted to Northwestern University, but also the College of Worcester. His total grant is $468,000. But not only with universities have we been successful, we also have some students who got accepted to high schools. For example, Shahriar, he got accepted to United World Colleges. This is a high school in Hong Kong. And it's one of the best high schools. One of the most expensive as well. It costs about $90,000 per year, and he got a full scholarship of $180,000. This is actually my older brother. He was the one who showed me the entire application process, taught me everything I needed to know. He himself applied 5 years ago, back when nobody was applying abroad, and he was able to get accepted to Yale and US College. His university is ranked 12th around the world, and he got $220,000. So far, we've had 56 students accepted to university, and our total grant value is $7.1 million. So, now as you can see, we've had a lot of great success with our course and with our teaching. And so, I kind of want to tell you a bit of the things that play a big role during the application. I want to show you guys a bit about how to apply. First things first, even before you start choosing universities, before you do any research, mindset plays a big role. You need to make sure that you have the right mindset when you are applying to universities abroad. And right now, I'm going to show you that most of your reasons for why you're applying are probably wrong. First things first, you have to ask yourself the question, why are you applying abroad? Most people have a reason, but most reasons are not so good. So, I want you guys to think for a moment. When you were coming here, when you were thinking about learning how to apply for university, I need you to think about why. Why do you want to study abroad? Think about it for 20, 25 seconds, and I'm going to ask some of you what you think. How about I tell you guys what kind of mindset you need to have? Think about it kind of like this. A lot of people, when they're applying for university, they mainly look at prestige. They think, oh, this university is so amazing. It's ranked so high. But that's not the first thing that you should be looking at. I know a lot of people who want to get accepted to Harvard. But why? Because that's the only university they know abroad. And that's the only university they know is ranked very high. They hear that Harvard is ranked #1 in the world, and suddenly, I want to study at Harvard. That's the first thing they say. And it's actually very annoying to get messages from people saying, Mr. Abdulaziz, I would like to study at Harvard. What kind of IELTS score do I need? Or, Mr. Abdulaziz, I want to go to MIT. What IELTS score do I need? What SAT score? What do I need to do? The problem with these students is that they see a university and all they see is that university, but they don't understand anything about that university at all. What you need to do first is to think about your future goals beyond your university. What you're going to be doing after university. That's why I said both yours is partly wrong and his is also partly wrong. You need to think about what you're going to be doing with your life. What kind of aspirations you have. What kind of things have you already done regarding your future goals. And you need to make it seem in your essays, in your application, that in order to achieve your goals, you need a higher education, a higher aspect of learning. For example, let's say somebody wants to become an architect and they really do want to build sustainable architecture. Architecture that's good for the environment. However, at the same time, they have been studying architecture on their own through online courses, maybe going to architects and talking with them, having such interviews, doing his own research and maybe posting it on his own Instagram blog. He does all of these things already, but one thing he has noticed along the way is that he doesn't have enough knowledge to be able to become an architect. And he realizes that in order to learn about sustainable architecture, he needs to study outside of his country in order to make that a reality. And he looks at the program of, let's say, Stanford. He sees a program of Stanford called Sustainable Architecture. He looks into it, the course catalog, and notices the things that they teach, who it is taught by, and what kind of students have come out of that program. And he talks about that in his essay, saying, I've seen these results from your program. I see that if I go to Stanford in this program, I will be able to achieve my goals. And now here's the next part. Why should they even accept him? Why should they even give him a scholarship? At this point now he needs to prove that he's really good. Now he starts thinking about how if he's going to get accepted to Stanford, then he needs to have a really good SAT score. His extracurriculars are already really good. He does interviews with other architects. He has an Instagram blog post. He's done online architecture courses. And so you can already see that he's qualified, he has a good SAT score, and on top of that, he has an aspiration. The most important part being that aspiration. At this point, now he has a good chance of getting accepted to that university. Does that make sense? You need to prove to them that you have bigger goals and that university is going to help you achieve those goals. And on top of that, you need to understand the university itself. You can't just be applying to Harvard just because. If anyone asks me, Mr. Abdulaziz, I want to get accepted to Harvard, the first thing I'm going to do is say, okay, which program? And guess what? They don't have an answer. They say, oh, IT. All right, which IT program at Harvard? They don't know. And that's the biggest problem. You don't know why you're applying abroad. You truly don't. You just see it as a goal, and that's it. And those are the students who are not going to get accepted. Even before they start their application, they've already failed. And so today we're going to be talking mostly about the application components and how you should consider all of the components when you are applying. Here's the general list of how the components look. First, we have the grade point average, then standardized tests. We also have college essays, recommendation letters, extracurricular activities, portfolio, online presence. How about we go through each one by one, and talk about what it means and how important it is. First, grade point average, also known as GPA. Can anyone tell me what the GPA means?
The average score of grade marks of diploma.
Exactly. So let's say you get your yearly grades from 11th grade. You're basically going to have to take those yearly grades and then average them. Find the average, and that will become your GPA. So because we have a 5-point system, let's say your GPA is 4.6 out of 5. Well, that's pretty good. That means most of your subjects you're getting 5. Some of them you're getting 4. Let's say you might have a GPA of 3.8. Now that's going to be an issue because it shows universities that you actually have some 3s in some of your subjects. And it's also going to show them that the amount of 5s you have is not so good. But why does GPA play such a big role? It doesn't play a big role here in Uzbekistan, does it? Well, the reason why is because this is a very good indicator of how well you will do at the university. Sure, maybe you have a perfect GPA, but you don't do so well at university. That's better than them accepting somebody with already a low GPA. Because if you already have 3.5 out of 5, it means you won't do better than that at university. You'll either do the same or worse. Since their ranking depends partly on their GPAs at university, they don't want to be accepting people who are going to be getting bad GPAs in university. So this is mainly the first criteria that they look at. And it plays a very big role. If you have a low GPA, you're probably not going to do so well. Next, we have standardized tests. These are tests such as the SAT and ACT. Who here does not know what the SAT is? Raise your hand. Okay, great. Seems that I've done well. If I asked the same question more than a year ago, I think almost everybody in this room would have been holding their hands up. But we've done a very good job of promoting SAT around Uzbekistan. Why are SATs so important for the application process? A lot of people tell me, Mr. Abdulaziz, I found out that it's optional to send your SAT. This means I can apply to Harvard without SAT? Well, now here's the thing. You need to understand what optional means. It means you can submit your application without it. The same way that you can go into a fight without a knife. Let's say you're about to walk into a room, and in there, people are fighting to death. And before you walk in, somebody says, hey, you can bring a knife. It's optional. You don't have to. Now, sure, you can go into that room without a knife, but how large is your chance of survival? Other people in there have a knife, and those people are probably going to survive higher than you. It's the same thing with SAT. Think about it almost like a competition. You have so many parts of the application that we just mentioned. If you're missing a very crucial component like SAT, then at that point, other people who do have an SAT, they're going to be chosen over you. It's that simple. But what role does SAT play when you're applying? Why do universities care about it? Well, think about it like this. GPA is very important because it shows how well you can do at university. But the GPA that we have here in Uzbekistan versus the GPA in Japan versus the one in Germany, Russia, India, USA, all of those GPAs are different, correct? Because they don't know how easy it is to get a 5 in Uzbekistan. They don't know you can just go up to your teacher and say, Ustaz, bish poi bering. And they don't know how hard it is to get a 5 in India. Because in India, the curriculum there is very strict. And so because they can't really compare these GPAs, they need something that is standard. Something that they can look at, which they understand. That's why it's called a standardized test. Because your SAT score versus somebody in Germany, if you both have 1420, it means that they can understand you are both equally as intellectual. So, let's say you have 5.0 GPA, perfect. However, you have 1,1230 on the SAT. Let's try writing that down actually. So, 5.0 GPA, that's a perfect GPA. However, you have 1,230 from SAT. Now here they're like, okay, his GPA is very good, but it seems that his system of education is very easy. Because even though his GPA is perfect, well, he's still making a very terrible SAT score. Versus, let's say somebody were to have 4.7, He doesn't look so smart, does he, anymore? Not compared to that guy, but at least his SAT score is 1480. At this point, they're more likely to choose this second guy because of his SAT score. They can clearly see that, oh, okay, he has a lower GPA, but it's only because his education system might be very hard. So, what kind of SAT scores would you need to get accepted to a very good university? Well, let's take a look. Here are some scores of our students. As you can see, before I mentioned Firdaus, who got accepted to Cornell. He got 1,560 on the SAT. So far, this is one of the highest SAT scores I've seen in Uzbekistan. Rustam, who got accepted to Yale, that is his SAT score, 1,520. Sivinch, who got accepted to NYU Abu Dhabi, this is her SAT score, 1,510. These SAT scores are also very good, which are also our student scores. If you can get an SAT score that is this high, well, now you can rank for some of those very top universities. For example, Princeton. For example, University of Toronto, Wharton School. And here's another group of students. So, with that out of the way, now let's talk about college essays. So for university, they will be asking you to write essays as well. But not IELTS essays. They will want what is called a college essay. This college essay can be written on any topic. But the interesting part is that this one essay will go to every university you apply to. So you need to make sure it's very good. Apart from that, there will also be supplemental essays. These are essays that the university itself will ask you about. For example, Northwestern asked me to write an essay, why choose Northwestern? I know that University of Chicago will ask you another type of essay called, if the moon was made of cheese, what would happen? As you can see, those are completely two different types of essays. However, one of them involves a lot of creativity, like the moon will never be cheese. Whereas the other one is very technical. Why are you choosing Northwestern? Why not anywhere else? Anyways, why are essays important for colleges? The reason is because so far they've seen your GPA, it's a number. It could be a good number. They may have seen your SAT score. Also, it's a number. It could be a good number. However, just from that, they can't understand you as a person. They will need to understand you as a person before they accept you. So beyond just numbers, they want to figure out your personality, your way of thinking, you as a human. And that's what the essays play a role in. Next, we have recommendation letters. Does anyone here know what a recommendation letter is? Munis?
When the teachers recommend you by writing a letter.
Yeah, I mean, that's very... A recommendation letter is a recommendation, which is a letter.
They tell you, like, you're the best, why you're the best, something.
So yeah, that's kind of true. A recommendation letter will be written by your teachers, and it will tell the university about you from the teacher's perspective. So, why are recommendation letters important? Because first of all, they've seen you in the form of numbers. They've seen your essay writing skills and you as a person, but they're only hearing about you from you. They want to hear about you from somebody else's perspective. And that's why a recommendation letter would play a good role. Let's say you seem like an amazing student. Great SAT score, great GPA. Your essays are also decently written. However, one of your recommendation letters writes that you're often late to class and that you don't do your homework. Obviously, none of your teachers would write that. At least I hope. But if something like that is written, a university can see, oh, okay, from an outside perspective, this student is not so amazing as we thought. And so, once again, a recommendation letter will play a big role. If you have really strong recommendation letters from your teachers, it will go a long way. Next, we have extracurricular activities. So far, we've talked about everything related to academics. SAT is academic. GPA is academic. Your essays are academic. Even the recommendation letter, it's being written by your teacher, very academic. They want to see what you can do outside of school, outside of academics. And so that's what the extracurriculars play a role in. An extracurricular activity could be participating in the basketball team at your school. It could be volunteering at a charity event. It could be participating in a Model United Nations conference. So these are things you would do outside of school in order to impress the university. They want to see how balanced are you. There could be two students, both of them are great choices. Perfect GPA, perfect SAT. There's nothing different about them. But one of them plays a sport, one of them doesn't. They play a sport, let's say, called ice hockey. And who knows, maybe the university they're applying to has an ice hockey team, but that ice hockey team is lacking one player. At this point, that university might think, oh wow, such a great student. Also an ice hockey player. We can have him at our university. We could give him a scholarship because anyways, we were going to give somebody a scholarship. But now he's going to benefit our university. And so you could have these types of chances as well. I remember I had a friend named Behruz back at Tashkent International School. He actually does fencing. You know that sport where there's a long sword and then you hit people like this? So basically he does fencing, and surprisingly enough, he was actually ranked 86 in fencing around the world, which is huge, 86th rank. And because of this, he applied to a university where they also had fencing as one of their main sports. And because of that, he got easily accepted without even a problem. Extracurricular activities play an extremely big role as well, so think about this. There are 3 different types of extracurriculars that you want to think about. The first one is creativity, activity, and service. Creativity means doing some sort of task which involves making things, creating. For example, maybe you're interested in making music by playing an instrument. That could be an extracurricular activity. Maybe dancing as well, because you're creating dance. Or maybe you have an Instagram blog where you post interesting facts about architecture. Well, that could also be creativity because you're creating content. The next one, as I mentioned, is activeness. Activeness means things that are physically engaging. For example, sports. Dancing could also be. Maybe you have a fitness plan that is also actively engaging. The last one is service. This means you are actually helping other people. For example, volunteering at a charity event. Volunteering is great. You are serving other people. Maybe you participate in some sort of conference. Maybe you organize that conference. These would be related to service. You want to make sure that you have a balance with all 3 of them. You don't want to have a lot of activeness, but then 0 creativity. You don't want to just be doing service, but have a balance of all 3. Just a reminder, creativity, activeness, and service. Next, we have academic honors. Academic honors are special things that you do at school. For example, maybe you win the Principal's Award for Best Student of the Year. That would be considered an academic honor. Maybe you participate in Olympiads, maybe in Uzbekistan or even outside of Uzbekistan. Why are these so important? The reason is because these academic honors show just how good you are in comparison to other people. For example, let's say there's a student who goes to the International Chemistry Olympiad. And this student wins 5th place in the International Chemistry Olympiad. Well, now this means around the world, at an international sphere, he is now the 5th best person in chemistry. That's actually true. This guy right over here, his name is Sabr. He's actually won 5th place at the International Chemistry Olympiad, which is honestly a great achievement. But why is it a great achievement? Because when universities are selecting you, they will see, oh wow, he's actually the best at chemistry. He will be perfect in our chemistry program or in our medicine program. Next, we have portfolio. Is there anyone here who wants to apply for anything related to art? What kind of major? Architecture. Awesome. Yeah, for architecture, you would definitely need a portfolio. This means you have other architectural works that you've already created. Is there anyone here who's interested in IT? So with IT as well, you might have a portfolio, which is a zip file. Inside that zip file, there will be all of the works that you've created. Or not all of them, but the ones that you really enjoyed. The ones that you want to show universities, so that they can open the zip file and see your different works. Just make sure you don't put a virus inside there. It's going to be bad. Is there anyone else who's interested in just like art or even media? For example, Northwestern, I actually needed to send a portfolio because I was going to study media. Nobody else? Okay. If you ever want to consider something creative like IT or art, you would probably need a portfolio because they want to see what kind of work have you already done.
What did you send?
Which actually goes on to our next topic, online presence. Online presence can also be known as social media because that's pretty much what it is. There's 3 main social media platforms right now, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. What universities might do is they might check your online presence at one of these websites. So when might they check? Not always, but let's imagine a situation where there is 8 students that they really want. However, they can only accept 3 of them. In this case, they really want all 8 of them. However, in order to choose the top 3, they might think, hey, let's check their social media pages. And so what they will do is they will Google your name. They might Google which school you went to. And any other type of information you've given them, they'll try putting it into Google and finding your social media presence. And they actually do quite a good job. If they want to find you, they will. Because you've already given them so much information in your essays, in your resume, and stuff like that. So let's say they are checking your Instagram page. What are they mainly looking for? They want to see if you've done bad things. Now, obviously, we've all done bad things, but some people like to post about those bad things. And that is a problem. Have you seen those people, especially here in Uzbekistan? They have like those black and white photos where they stand like this.
Yes.
And then they're like, oh, жизнь varam, or something like that. I don't even know. For people like that, that's going to be very bad. They had a good chance at going to university, but now the university sees that this student may not be as presentable as they thought. Now, let's say that another one of those students had an amazing social media presence. Maybe they were very interested in cooking. And so that student actually posts about her baking skills and the different types of cakes she has made. Well, now that's very presentable. If the university sees that, they'll be like, wow, this student is not only smart, but she also has these extra creative skills. And they will see her skills through social media. In my own case, I actually had a very good social media presence. I made sure that my presence was perfect. For example, on my bio of Instagram, I specifically wrote president of TIS Student Council. I wrote captain of the TIS debate team. And I actually don't remember much else. But the posts that I've had, they've been at different types of MUN conferences that I've attended, both in Uzbekistan and also outside of Uzbekistan. I also had different types of TEDx performances that I've made. I've posted some clips from those. And overall, it was a very presentable environment. Anybody who would go into my social media, they could see that I am quite an active student and that everything I wrote about in my application matches. And so I feel like my social media presence was a big role for getting accepted to Northwestern as well. Because when they're accepting me for journalism, they could see from my TEDx performances, that I can actually speak in front of a camera, which is important for a journalist. And so you can already see how these things are building up together.
Just want to clarify one thing.
Yeah?
Like, do they check all of them? Like, because I have only...
No, they're not going to go into detail. Honestly, I don't think they'll go into detail. If they do, they'll just like skim through it very quickly and be like, okay, good or bad.
I'm not active on Facebook, but active on Instagram. Is it still good?
Yeah, no. Oh, you mean like every platform?
Yes.
Wherever they can find you. They're just looking for different types of information about you, which you don't mention in your application. For example, there's a very interesting story. Maybe you've heard about it. There was a student who got accepted to Harvard. And when he got accepted to Harvard, there was a Facebook group about the new students who were just accepted. And in that Facebook group, this student, along with some other students, they started posting some racist memes and like very negative memes as well about black people and other types of races. And because of this, the word got out to Harvard itself, and Harvard had to take back his acceptance. And that's a very terrible situation to be in. Imagine getting accepted to Harvard and just because you were racist, they take your stuff back. Like, racism is a big issue, and they did a good job of taking his application away. If you're racist, just don't show it. It's that simple, okay? Most of you are probably not, but don't do that. Even if you're not racist, maybe you like racist memes, don't do it. Okay? Yeah. Oh yeah, for example, here is my Instagram page. You might want to follow me for a very good example of how your social media should look. Is there anyone here who actually does not follow me? Raise your hand. You guys all follow my Instagram? No, you don't? Right here. Right there. I will wait. This is not a request, it is a demand. Next, we have the English proficiency requirements. As you may have noticed, we already talked about 8 things. However, isn't this a 9th thing? Well, no. IELTS and TOEFL are not exactly a component of the university application. They are simply a requirement. As a requirement, you need to have it. This means that even before you consider anything, you need to make sure that you have the right IELTS or TOEFL score. Let's say your entire application is very nice. However, the university is not going to want it if your English is not good enough. Let's say they have a requirement of 7, but your IELTS score is 6. At that point, they'll think, oh, great student. However, he won't understand some parts of our program. And because of that, sadly, they won't be able to accept you. In some cases, they might. For example, with Northwestern, I didn't need to send my TOEFL score because my SAT English score was high enough to prove that my English was really good. In some cases, you might be able to do that, but not all. Some universities will keep this as a solid requirement. No matter what, you need to have the right IELTS or TOEFL score. So is there anyone here who actually studies at Thompson? You guys are doing well. Keep studying here. Make sure that you take the IELTS here and get your 7 or 7.5. Because before you even start applying, it is crucial. Okay? Awesome. And that's pretty much it. That's all that we have to talk about today. Now, you might have some questions, or maybe you don't. In case you do, you can ask now.
What is better to take first, IELTS or SAT?
That's a question I get a lot. And the answer that I would give is to first take SAT, then IELTS. Now, obviously, stop. You guys are probably thinking, he's an SAT teacher. Of course he's going to say that. But no, I actually have some reasons. The reason is because if you prepare for SAT, it's such a difficult exam that once you're finished preparing, IELTS will seem very easy to you. We've had a lot of students who are in this exact same position. Remember, it's hard to prepare for IELTS, but it's also hard to prepare for SAT. So instead, it's better for you to first prepare for SAT and then just take IELTS after 1 month or 2 months of preparation. It's much better than spending 6 months on IELTS than spending another 5 months on SAT. Make sense? We've had some students in the same exact situation. For example, Said Kamal. He came to us when he had a 6.5 on IELTS. He studied in our summer intensive group, and after getting 1,400 on the SAT, he then took Duolingo. Duolingo is another exam, but afterwards he got 140. That's the same as IELTS 8. So he went from IELTS 6.5 to IELTS 8 after studying for SAT. So there are some benefits from that side. Yeah?
Does the undecided major lower our acceptance rate?
Your what?
Undecided major. Undecided.
Oh. Yeah, I'm not so sure. I want to give an answer right now, but to be honest, it's very hard to tell. Because in order to figure out if that's true or not, what you would need to do is you would need to take all of the students who had a decided major and see their acceptance rate, how good of a chance they had at acceptance. And you would also need to take people who chose undecided and see how good their chances were. It's like, it's not a thing that people are able to find out. So honestly, I do not know, because it's just not information that's available. It might matter for some universities. However, for other universities, it might not matter. Think about it that way.
I'm a freshman in academic license, and I'm gonna take an IELTS in 3 months, and after that, I'm gonna study SAT.
If you're already preparing for IELTS, then go ahead, keep preparing. But if you haven't started IELTS and you haven't started SAT, the better thing would be to go for SAT.
Learning IELTS.
Good, in that case, stay with IELTS, because the progress you already have, you don't want to lose it.
And will you open the course in summer?
We're opening one in June.
June?
Yeah. I'm
gonna take an IELTS 25 June. On 25 June.
Okay.
The deadline is in October or?
Well, I mean, there's many times you can take SAT. The upcoming SATs are August, October, and December. I would never recommend anyone to take the SAT in December, because during December, you should be submitting your documents already. Your deadline is January 1st. So if you are taking the SAT in December, then at that point you are both preparing for SAT and you are also filling out your application. Very bad situation to be in. It's better for you to take it in October or August. Anything else?
I wanted to ask about gender balance. Why they, like some prestigious universities, with this gender balance?
Why do they keep it?
Yeah.
I feel like it's more of a social thing. They don't want to be called out for having too many students who are male, too many students who are female. And I think it's also good for their ranking as well. There's a component called diversity. And diversity means both genders, but also it also talks about national diversity. So like not just all Americans, but rather having an Uzbek would also boost their diversity score.
What if my math is not really good? What should I do?
Well, then I have some bad news for you. No, I'm joking. Well, I mean, obviously you would need to improve your math then, because the university application process is not going to be easy. There are certain things you definitely need to do. For example, take the SAT. And that requires knowing math. Yes, it's going to be difficult, but is it required? Yeah, you have to learn math.
Should I go for a general math course or SAT?
Oh, if you don't know math, go for general first. Anything else?
Should I know 10th grade or 11th grade maths?
You have.
Or
For SAT?
Yeah.
The interesting thing about SAT is that the math is not so difficult. Like, it'll mainly be 8th grade and 9th grade algebra. However, because it's those topics, it's going to be really hard questions from those topics. So they're not going to be covering things like advanced trigonometry, but they will cover basic trigonometry, but very difficult. No logarithms either. Yeah. Think about it like this. It'll be algebra questions, but very hard algebra questions. Make sense? Yeah.
I have never participated in Olympiads from subjects. Like, what should I do in this situation?
You don't have to. They also realize that in some parts of the world, they're simply unable to participate in Olympiads. And so they don't keep it as like a requirement. If you can, then that would be great. I know there are a lot of online tournaments that you can also participate in, like online Olympiads, which you could do. And you might get a high ranking. Okay? Is that it? Nothing else?
With the difference between the academic IELTS and the Duolingo, do you prefer both? Or
There is no preference. Like whichever one you send, they're completely okay with. It depends on if the university accepts it or not. If they say we accept IELTS, TOEFL, and Duolingo, they will see all of them equally. Yeah.
Which universities and colleges do advise in the USA about marketing?
For marketing. Ooh. Well, Northwestern is actually a really good one. Before I was talking about the Northwestern School of Communications. It's actually ranked #1 for communications. Communications is kind of like a broad major. It includes things like videography, graphic design. It includes theater. It also includes marketing, copywriting, and stuff like that. So if you want to do copywriting, focus on getting accepted to a communications school. And Northwestern is actually #1 for communications in USA and 15 around the world. So that might be a good choice. Yeah.
What universities do you suggest for studying IT?
Oh.
Like program engineering and like that?
Carnegie Mellon is a very good school. Carnegie Mellon. I know some people who study at Carnegie Mellon, so it actually means it's possible for Uzbek people to get accepted there. And they do have very good computer science programs.
Can I get a full scholarship?
Yeah, from Carnegie Mellon, they do offer full scholarships.
Who are allowed to write recommendation letter? For example, only teachers, or let's say you?
Oh, that's a very good question. You have required recommendations which need to be from teachers. Apart from that, you might also have optional recommendations. Those optional recommendations could be from anybody else, apart from your family.
Like, let's say I know a famous person, like achieved so many things.
Yeah.
Can you recommend?
Yeah, he can. And you do want to make sure that they are famous and influential, because if you just get it from Mr. Abdulaziz, it's not going to matter. They don't know who Mr. Abdulaziz is, so they're not going to care. But they do know who, for example, Alisher Sadulayev is, because at the very bottom it's going to say Director of the Youth Union, first advisor to the president. That's going to be very influential. Yeah?
Are there 50 universities that don't require SAT?
Can you repeat what the question is?
Are there top 50 universities that don't require SAT?
None of them require SAT. Because remember, SAT is not a requirement. You could submit it, or you can choose not to. It's optional. But remember what I said earlier about what is optional. Yes, you can choose not to send it, but if you don't send it, your chance of getting accepted is basically 0. It's the same thing as going into a room where everybody has a knife. If you go into the room without a knife, you are not going to survive.
Actually, from next year, MIT is
Yes.
said it's
That's
required.
required.
They're going to continue requiring it again?
Yes.
Nice. I mean, that simply just means you have to have an SAT score just to submit the application. That's the only difference.
What if Florida does require SAT?
Does it?
Yes, Florida.
For a scholarship or in general?
In general.
Oh, I mean, it's because they want students to have an SAT score. That's probably why. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Do you think it's good, like they require?
There's no difference. I think it's actually better if they don't require, because then it makes people think that they don't need it, and people who know they need it will have an advantage. Make sense? Yeah.
About 108, so one university is saying like they're limited awards for international students.
Yeah, you need to apply as early as possible if that's the case, because they will want to give you a scholarship, but if there's no more money left, they can't.
But at the same time, they say that the majority of students who are accepted they apply during regular school.
Okay. Then in that case, apply for early action, but that means your chances are even higher. I think, Sabr, you have a good chance. You can already take SAT in August, and as long as you can make sure all of your essays are good enough until then, just apply it for early action.
So, also early action, non-binding, it's not single choice, right?
It depends. If it's a single choice university, that means you can't apply early action for anywhere else. Yeah. All right, I think with that, we can actually end it. Thank you guys very much for coming. One thing I really do want to mention at the very end is regarding mindset. Remember, it's very hard to apply for university abroad because you need to be the right type of person. Think about what a scholarship even means. They are literally giving you money to study. So that's when you need to ask yourself the question, if I want a $300,000 scholarship, am I worth $300,000? Obviously, right now, the answer is no. None of you here are worth $300,000. However, there's still time to improve. There's still time to make sure your GPA is very good. Time to make sure you get a good SAT score, a good IELTS score. Time to write very good essays. You may not be worth $300,000 right now, but you can make sure you are. And when you are, getting the scholarship won't be hard. Okay?
Если английский, то только в Thompson.